Good morning from the desert. It is a crisp November day. It's been way too long since we've been out here. We're taking Joe out, and you can't see because Carrie's sitting there taking the video. We're just a little bit west of Lake Pleasant, heading toward the Boulders area. We're trying out a new trail this morning. Hopefully, it'll be fun and have some great things to see. So, let's hit the trail.
We started off by heading into the Morgan City Wash. The wash can be followed all the way to the Bog Ranch and definitely would have been the smoothest route to take. The wash was in good condition today and would have been passable in any high clearance vehicle, four-wheel drive not required. However, today we wanted to explore an alternate route that runs somewhat parallel to the wash at a little higher elevation. So we made a right turn out of the wash, which led us to a smaller two-track to the north. This track starts off pretty smooth, with just a few very minor obstacles. The views driving through the saguaros are nice, and this would still be pretty easy going in any high clearance vehicle. As we progressed, we did hit a few brushy sections like this wash crossing that would probably pinstripe a larger vehicle like a Jeep or a truck. But Joe has already earned plenty of stripes, so we just soldiered on. Another half a mile after the wash crossing, we would make a left turn at a four-way junction. From this point until we would rejoin the wash, this trail became much bumpier. There's still nothing particularly difficult, but a couple miles of driving over loose boulders can be a little slow going and uncomfortable. And this typically doesn't rate as our favorite kind of trail. We bumped and bounced our way through the zigzags, finally making our way to where we would be rejoining the wash. The first part of the ride took about 30 minutes to complete, with the last 500 feet or so being our favorite part. Making the final left turn, you'll head down a steep hill where tire placement is important. This spot might be a little unnerving in a full-size vehicle. Then it's through a ravine and up to a final downhill section. The final downhill is also steep and rutted, but is really easier than it looks. This part of the trail was so much fun that we went out of our way to do it again on our way back. From here, it's a right turn into the wash and about another 2 miles to Bog Ranch. The Morgan City Wash is in very nice condition right now, making for a fast, smooth ride which only took about 6 minutes. If we were planning to do this trip again, I think running the wash the entire way would be a better choice. The next stop at the Bog Ranch is a little hidden by the overgrowth and could easily be missed if you weren't looking for it. We drove a little past it ourselves before circling back.
After a somewhat bumpy start, we finally made it to our first stop of the day. This is the Bog Ranch. And there's not a whole lot left to see here, but we'll walk you around a little bit. I'll probably fly the drone. Just makes a nice place to stop, take it all in. The scenery is beautiful.
I had hoped to be able to find some historical information about this site that I could share during the edit process, but I wasn't really able to find anything beyond the name. So, other than the visual observation that there appears to have been a home and some cattle pens, I wasn't able to learn anything about how long ago this property has been abandoned or what significance it might have had. I would certainly love to hear from you in the comments if you have some local knowledge to share about the history of this location. Coming across sites like this in the middle of the rugged desert always makes us wonder about what life must have been like for the former residents. We have to imagine that they were pretty tough and self-reliant people.
My co-pilot is always ready to go. Man,
Cold.
she's cold. Not many people up north are going to have much sympathy for us this time of year. You know, it's probably in the 50s or 60s right now.
With the wind.
But the wind, yep. So, was the road in a little bit bumpier than you thought it might have been?
Yes.
You want to take that way back? Should we go with just taking the smooth wash road?
Please.
All right. So let's get back on the trail. Well, we're not sure what our next stop is. It could be a hiking trail, or it could not. We'll find out. Let's hit the trail.
After leaving the Bog Ranch, we would continue northwest along the Morgan City Wash. The trail would continue to be a very smooth ride, and after about 8 more minutes, we arrived at our next intersection. We turned out of the wash onto a smaller side trail running north and east. This was somewhat exploratory on my part because I wanted to see if this trail would connect all the way through to Castle Hot Springs Road. This track was more narrow with a few brushy sections and had some slightly more challenging terrain than the wash. We were able to navigate the first washout after finding a manageable line and continued just a little further before stopping for a lunch break.
Doesn't it what?
Doesn't it just cut through by
You mean the washout? We made it to our next stop, and I wasn't sure if that was going to work out for us or not, because I wasn't 100% sure if this was a legitimate road, but it is, so that worked out. We are right on the very edge of the Hells Canyon Wilderness, so behind me is out of the wilderness. You're allowed to drive. Inside, no motorized vehicles at all. And we stopped here because we're going to take a little bit of a hike to what's hopefully a cool little surprise. But first, we're going to need to fuel up, so we are going to stop for some lunch. We found a nice little shady spot down in the wash. Got the chair set up. How to get low under these trees. And I'm bringing gourmet lunch. Look how happy she is. She's watching the saguaro. Finished lunch. We're heading down into the wash on foot and leaving the vehicle behind. Let's see if we can go find a little cave. I don't think it's going to compare to the caves that we saw in Sedona, but hopefully it'll be interesting enough to be worth it. So at this point, calling this a trail is a little bit generous. Probably best to have some good maps or a GPS, because it is not the easiest path to follow. I don't think that
There's probably a whole lot of traffic out here. Some spots like this, you can clearly see where the trail's supposed to go. But others, it just kind of disappears. You can barely see it on the camera, but off in the distance, there's a cave up on the hillside, and that's where we're heading. Okay, so cave might be a little generous. It's still a neat place to come and sit, even though it's, well, smaller than me. Hole in the rock, what do you call a mini cave? Mini cave, here we go. And of course, if this was your mini cave, you'd have this spectacular view. Uh-oh, falling rocks, not good. Of the Hells Canyon wilderness and the peaks off in the distance. One of which is called Pikes Peak. Not sure that's the Pikes Peak, but it is called Pikes Peak. Lots of saguaro, just beautiful scenery in general. Our mini hike to the mini cave was a success. Now we're walking that same trail back to Mean Joe. And we're going to jump in him, head back the way we came, and see if we can find our full-size hike. We'll catch up with you when we get back to the vehicle. The road did end up being completely washed out just a little past where we stopped for lunch. So we headed back in the direction we came towards the Morgan City Wash, and then on towards the Boulders OHV area. Unless you're looking for a quiet lunch stop or an access point for the Walkin Jim trail, you might just eliminate this spur from the overall route and dedicate more time to exploring the other area trail. After about 20 minutes of backtracking, we were back in the wash heading northwest toward the Burro Spring Trailhead. As we continued, the wash became a little narrower in sections, where it would feel more like a canyon with the walls towering above. The trail remained pretty easy and would not be a challenge for any high clearance vehicle. We would be exiting the wash onto what the map calls North Castle Hot Springs Road, and here we ran into the first traffic of the day. The initial exit point from the wash was a little steep, but there was an easier go-around just to the left. Once past the initial climb out of the wash, this was a very nice trail. Gaining elevation means the views are improving, and I rated this about a 3 out of 10 on difficulty. Well, we made it up to the Burro Spring Trailhead. We elected to not go hiking today, but at least we wanted to come check it out. It certainly looks like a nice area. The Burro Spring Trail looks like a good hike that we may want to revisit. But since we were running short on time, we decided to keep moving. Again, we would be heading back towards the Morgan City Wash to access the Boulders OHV area and the LP10 trail. And once back at the main wash, it's only about 500 feet until the right turn onto the Boulders LP10. We would just be using this trail to loop back to our original staging area, but LP10 can also be used to connect to the many other designated trails in the Boulders OHV area. This would end up being our favorite part of today's ride. The ridgeline views on this portion of the trail are awesome, and there's enough variety to the terrain to keep it interesting and somewhat challenging. I rated this portion of the ride about a 5 out of 10 on difficulty. There are a few sections of this trail that might be uncomfortable for someone new to off-roading or driving a larger vehicle. Pinstripes are a definite possibility if you're in a Jeep or a truck. We did encounter one narrow spot along this section which would probably challenge vehicles wider than about 75 inches. There was an alternate available just to the right though. From that point, it was an easy 20-minute ride back to the truck along the wash after we stopped to visit with a lone burro. We hope you enjoyed riding along with us today through the Morgan City Wash and the Boulders OHV area. We really enjoy exploring the beautiful Arizona desert and are happy to be able to share it with you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.